volume.
Drum and bass. It was my gateway drug to electronic music. Well, that's not actually true. This was my gateway drug to electronic music. But that led me to this album, which in turn led me to this guy, which led me to wanting to produce some, drum and bass and jungle and IDM. So a more precise statement would be jungle, drum and bass was my, gateway drug into electronic music production. And I still have nostalgia and fascination for that particular era, to the point that I actually spent most of last summer working on a fully fledged ambient drum and bass jungle 90s kind of sort of album, but more on that later. And when I say that era, obviously jungle was widely popular in the mid-90s, but I arrived on it a bit later on in 2005ish, and by that time, computers were already the preferred method for music production in general, but especially for jungle and drum and bass. In fact, from the mid-90s on, software trackers like the Octamed for Amiga were all the rage, and DAWs like Cubase were really starting to take shape. But hardware samplers like the Akai S950, S1000, S1100, they still played a massive role in music production. And I remember browsing vintage Synth Explorer back in the days and lusting over, the Akai S950 and especially the Akai S1100. The reality was that I had a white MacBook back in 2006 that was probably much more powerful than any of those. So you gotta realize that back in 2005, 2006, YouTube was like 6 months old. So, forums, online forums, text-based online forums were literally all you had to try and figure out how to make music. So anyway, I really wanted a sampler. And I bought an SP404, not the SX, the OG one. And everybody who's tried to produce drum and bass on that knows it's nearly impossible. And so my frustrated 16 years old ass went back to my MacBook and started, using Reason and GarageBand, which was probably the logical choice to make. So 15 years come by and this comes out. And me being the old head that I am, I'm instantly blown away by this. So in the size of a pocket calculator, you have 4-track sequencer with pattern chaining, you have great effects, and most importantly, you have auto slicing, which is amazing. And as a bonus point, you get that crusty 8-bit sampling, so reminiscent of the old samplers that I used to love. So, without further ado, let me show you why the PO33 is the jungle powerhouse that fits snugly into your front pocket. Let's go.
So, I've recorded most of the sounds that I need already before filming. At slot number 1 we have a nice chord sound. Cool, and at sound slot number 2 we have the same chord, but it is a softer tone like a pad. For sound 3 we have bass, and as you can hear, it's super distorted because the PO33 doesn't handle low frequencies all that well. So what we need to do now is to go into editing and look for the filter. When you see FLT, we're gonna turn it down. This is a low pass filter, so as you can hear, all the bad frequencies that were causing noise are cut off and all that's left is bass. Anyway, let's move on. In terms of breaks, we have the famous Hot Pants break, the Think break, and the James Brown Soul Pride break. Them's the breaks. These are very famous and widely used in jungle and drum and bass, so yeah. I've added some vocals and vocal effects.
This should be played at high volume.
And these are taken from the 0G data file sample packs, which are also very much ingrained in the jungle lore. Shout out to the legend Jeremy from Red Means Recording for finding them on the internetarchive.org. I'll post the link down below. So let's start with something like this. And that's probably gonna be either 4 or 8 bars, but for now we need to focus on just the first bar, and in it you have just this. So let's select pattern 1 and input some notes. Okay, so we need to fake a metronome since the PO33 doesn't technically have one. So I'm gonna select a drum sound. Let's see. This snare is okay. This is the first bar of a 4-bar pattern, so I'm gonna copy this by selecting the pattern first, then press right plus pattern and the destination slot. As you can see, CPY flashes on the screen, all good. I'll add another note into pattern 2 in real time by pressing right plus adding the note in real time. And of course, I can't even play on time, so I'm gonna press right again and edit that note. All good. So this is where we are now, and now that you've seen most of the process, I'm gonna skip to the full 4-bar pattern. Here it is. Cool, let's get into the meat of the matter, the drums. Let's explore some sound. I think I like the Soul Pride break. Let me just limit myself to the first bar now, so I can focus on building a cool pattern 1 bar at a time. Let's start with the snare. I'll then select slice by slice and try a couple of things. Cool, so now I need to repeat this 3 more times. I wish there was some sort of tried and true method for building drum breaks, but it is truly a trial and error process. That said, you don't need to suffer through this, so I'll skip to the finished product. There it is. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's something weird with the last bar. That is because the pitch on the drums is slightly lower. This is an old trick that I often use on the last bar of the pattern to make the whole phrase more interesting. Let's think about the bass now. It's definitely too loud, so I'm gonna turn it down a tad. I'm gonna live record this. And straight away, I know that I'm gonna need to edit bar number 2. There you go. Let's add some vocals. This is cool. I put it into the first beat of bar 1. Let's also add some spoken word stuff to bar 4. I need the very end of this phrase where it says high volume, so I have to use the trim function to edit this sound. Let's add some more of this, literally the word this. I added it in bar 2. So if I play bar 2 by itself, I can hear it. But when I chain bar 1 plus bar 2, it disappears. What's up with that? Well, the PO33 has a polyphony of 4 voices, and we've reached the limit, so we need to trim the previous vocal sample to accommodate this one. Another thing that I like to do is to copy pattern 4 into pattern 8, select the drum sound, delete it, and use a different drum break, just to spice things up. Let's use the think break. It sounds cool, but it's a bit low energy when the regular pattern kicks back in. So let's try and spice that up. And let's copy pattern 1 into pattern 5. Let's select this open hi-hat sound and place it at the start. And it sounds much better. Let me just add a kick sound to pattern 8 and we're good. And now let's hear it in context. Great. The one problem we have now though is that the variation break is way louder than the regular break, if that makes sense. And that is weird because the think break is usually very quiet compared to other breaks, but yeah, this is a problem now because there's no mixing section in the PO33. We don't have any faders or anything like that, so we have to select the sound, turn it down, then go to all the slices in record mode, turn all the lights off and on again. And this is the result. Cool, so now that we have the full phrase sorted, we need to think about an intro. I have this sound right here, which is again the same chord as the one we previously used, but it is a much softer tone. So let's use it. This intro won't have drums, so I'll just have 2 patterns and I'll repeat each of them twice to get 4 bars. There it is. I'll add some of these ats as well. I've applied a high pass filter on the think break in order to have a softer sound. At this point, I'm gonna copy patterns 6 and 7 to 9 and 10, and I'm gonna delete all the drums from 9 and 10. This way we can build an intro with more layers. I'm then gonna copy pattern 7 into pad 12 to create a variation.
High volume. High volume. High volume. High volume.
Great, we're almost there, ladies and gents. All we need now is a middle 8 section. And to do so, I want to use the same filtered drums as the intro section, but I want to use the old chord sound from the regular section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste pattern 6 into 13 and delete the chord sound. So now I only have the hi-hats left. I'm gonna copy and paste part 13 into 14, 15 and 16, and I'm gonna rewrite the chords because it's much easier that way. Now for the middle 8s, I would also like some melody, but I will need to use my computer to browse some sounds. And precisely, these are from my Big Umami Bombs Volume 1 pack, and you can get them on my website bigumami.com. Also, there's another completely free sample pack called Recycled Drums Volume 1, which is actually a collection of 10 drum loops inspired by some of the most famous drum breaks of all time. So it's perfect from drum and bass, again completely free, so do yourself a favor and go visit bigumami.com. Anyway, I think I found a sound from my middle 8, let's punch a melody in. Cool, so I think with this we're officially done with the patterns. Let me just do a quick recap of the structure.
But before that, remember at the very beginning of the video I was talking about a drum and bass album that I made last summer. Well, here it is. So this is a jungle liquid drum and bass type album, and you can actually hear one of the tunes in the background right now. But you might have a few questions about it. First of all, why is the artist name not Big Umami but Tomato Breaks? 2. What does line wiring mean? And 3. Is that you on the cover? So I'm gonna answer these questions quickly. First of all, yes, I decided to use a different artist name for this project because I'm planning to do some releases as Big Umami in the next few months and years, actually quite a few releases, but I view Big Umami as a sort of dance, house, you know, electronic sort of project, and this is quite a different genre, so I didn't want to, you know, mix the two because it's a nightmare in terms of, you know, targeting audiences and marketing and all that fancy bullshit. 2. What does line wiring mean? Of course, it comes from LimeWire. It is a reference to the early 2000s. So if you know, you know, and if you don't know, Google it. And thirdly, yes, that is me on the cover. I was 11 years old, and yeah, this is a very nostalgic album for me because drum and bass is a very nostalgic genre for me. So there you go. So where can you find this album? First of all, you can find it right here in this YouTube channel. Last week I actually released it in full, so you can go and check it out. I'll post a link, right here? What is it? I don't know, whatever. And also I put a link in the description box below. But if you really want to do me a solid, you can go to Bandcamp and you can buy the whole thing for $5.99. Also, you can stream it on pretty much any platform except for Spotify, because Spotify is a bit finicky, so I'm just waiting a few days or weeks to get it on there. Oh, and quick post note about this whole spiel about, you know, selling you my drum and bass album. This is a video about making jungle on the PO33, but that doesn't mean that I actually made the whole album on one of these. Of course, not that crazy. One person who is that crazy is actually a guy called Devnol, and the album is called Micro Jungleism, and you should really go check it out because it's awesome. I'm not that talented, not that patient either, so yeah. I mean, I composed a few breaks on this and then recorded it onto the computer, but it's mainly, you know, mixed in a DAW. Anyway, back to the video we go. So in the first row, 1 to 4, we have a full loop with all instruments, drums, bass, keys, vocals. And it sounds something like this. Then at number 5 we have a variation or a modifier for the very start of this loop. This is what it sounds like. At number 8 we have the same thing, it's a variation or a modifier, this time for the end of the loop. This is what it sounds like. And this is it in context. At number 9 and 10 we have the very first intro with just a pad sound. Six and 7 is the same, but we have also some hi-hats. Number 8 we have a modifier for the end part of the intro, and this is what it sounds like.
High volume.
Finally, 13 to 16 we have the middle 8 section. This is it. Now I only have to put them all in order and have a little jam with the PO33 cool effects.
volume. High volume.
So that's it for today. Hopefully you found this video interesting or amusing or useful or all three. And remember to check out my drum and bass album. Also remember to go to my website bigomami.com, where you can find a free, completely free sample pack which features 10 drum breaks that are actually awesome for drum and bass. So that one is on me, but you know, it is a pay as you want. So if you guys wanna give me some money, I'll be happy to have it. If you guys are not interested in my music nor my sample packs, but consider my video useful and important to you, you can also support me on buymeacoffee.com/bigomami. I think I've said enough for today. It's been a very long video, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Mwah.